Thanks for showing up on kind of late notice and kind of a mix-up on our part, but appreciate you coming here. Just let me know, everybody ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay, just want to, Shannon Guay, obviously we were here about a month ago talking about a number of charges. I'm here today to announce additional charges in this case. Initially charged 5 victims. Since we had our press conference, kind of thinking there may be other victims out there, we've had additional women come forward. So we have 5 additional women that have come forward that we can file charges on at this point in time. So if you're keeping track, that would be 10 total victims in this case, with 21 different CSC charges that are pending now against Mr. Guay. In addition to that, we've had 3 other victims come forward on top of that we cannot charge. We cannot charge those individuals due to statute of limitations issues. Basically what we have now with these new charges are 5 counts of criminal sexual conduct in the first degree and 1 count of kidnapping. Those are all life offenses in which there's essentially no statute of limitations. The ones we cannot charge are involving criminal sexual conduct in the second degree charges. Those are a maximum penalty of 15 years, but those have issues regarding the statute of limitations because under Michigan law, the statute of limitations is 15 years or 28 years old. Is when it runs out, and the victims we have are older than that, and the charges are older than 15 years, so we're unable to move forward. However, saying that, I think it is beneficial, and hopefully we're doing this once again. I think there is the message that we can still, if there's more people out there, don't think, well, it's too old, we can't do anything. Those victims may be used in court to support the other victims. Even though we can't officially file charges, we may be able to use their testimony in a court proceeding to, in essence, support what these other girls are saying happened to them many years ago. So it's not like, geez, nothing can happen. I think people stepping forward at any time with any information is extremely beneficial. As we see, our first press conference we had 5, and now we've got at least 8 more women who have come forward, and I have a feeling there's probably more out there. So that's what we're trying to get the word out, and we appreciate the press doing that because I think this does help in these criminal sexual conduct investigations. They very often don't want to come forward. Delayed disclosure and hiding stuff like this is a very common aspect of sexual assault cases, especially when you involve kids or teenagers, as this case does. So that's where we're still trying to get the message out and encourage people. If you have information, please come forward. The Sheriff's Department's looking into everything, and we're doing what we can. As with the other charges, he is presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. That will happen in a court case down the road. I think the preliminary exam is set for August at this point in time. I don't have the exact date, but I think it's been pushed back till August because we're still doing an investigation. And I think the sheriff has a few words to say about some other things going on.
Good morning, everybody, and I just wanted to make a couple comments. Our hearts go out to the women that have been impacted by this offender, the women that we already know about, the women that we're still seeking information from. There are many resources in our community, including the YWCA as an adult. If there are children that you know of that have been sexually assaulted, the Children's Advocacy Center is a great resource for counseling and information. So that being said, we have notified jurisdictions in Washington, Texas, Florida, and California where we know he has worked as a gymnastics coach in previous years. And we've made sure they have the details of this case, the pattern that we believe has been established so that they can look for victims in their jurisdictions as well. We have already become aware of some material that has been located in Florida and charges that will likely be pursued there because of that. So again, if you have any information in our community, if there is any information about any more activities of Mr. Guy, we do want to know it. We do need to know it because it helps other victims move forward with their cases, and it may still be a case that we can pursue here in Michigan. That being said, we're available for questions or if anybody has any issues that we haven't answered. Yes, ma'am.
So, Sheriff, you had just mentioned that charges will likely be pursued in Florida. Can you say where specifically in Florida charges may come?
I don't. It's the Charlotte County Sheriff's Office that we have been working with on this case, which is where he was located at the time original charges were sought.
Gotcha. I know it's ongoing, so I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have much detail on that case. That's a case you would want to reach out to them with. We just know that there are charges moving forward potentially in that jurisdiction. I do need to point out, just like the prosecutor said, obviously all of these are pending, either pending conviction or pending charge. So there are no convictions yet for Mr. Guy. That's all going to be the result of court cases and proceedings. So we do have to keep the notion that he may not be guilty of these things, but we believe he is.
Do you have possibly like a timeline of when he might have worked in each of those states?
We do have a timeline. I don't have that exact timeline, but we would be able to supply that information.
Are you able to comment on just the gravity of this case? Obviously, this is the person trusted as a coach, and then these charges against him, these accusations. Just more on that.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking to know that all these young people were affected by it. This kind of offense is very often associated with patterns. And so the gravity of it is that he's put himself in a place where he has a trusted relationship with young, vulnerable women over and over and over again, to establish their trust and then to violate that trust. So the impact obviously is on that victim initially when they're being victimized, but that kind of violation of trust has far-reaching effects into somebody's life. And that's why we do constantly kind of reiterate that there are resources to help work through those challenges that creates for a young person, an adult woman, and then later into their adult years without counseling.
You have a lot of victims that have already come forward. Is it still important if there's other victims out there for them to come forward as well?
Yeah, and the prosecutor alluded to this. So there's several ways actually, that coming forward impacts our cases. One, it helps to establish patterns and how did he victimize you. It may allude to how he victimized other people, which might help us identify additional victims and charges. So that's one way. It can be used to support a case, the creation of the case for trial, and it just helps us to establish, let somebody know that your offender has been caught, and we are doing everything we can to bring them to justice, and that your victimization mattered. And it'll help us.
Just going to that point, in terms of, so many times we deal with these cases, it's isolation. They think they're the only ones, nobody else would understand, nobody else has happened to it. It's isolation for that victim, where hopefully now they see it's not just them, and they didn't do anything wrong, and they're caught up in a larger scheme. So I think it's also just, whether we can charge or not, I think it's going to be helpful for the victim to come forward and seek the resources, be it the Y, be it the CAC, to help them work through this, because clearly they've been thinking that it's just me when it's not.
Since this involves multi-states, how is this going to work with him being charged in each state and going through the legal process and having a trial here, having one in
That's
Florida?
probably going to depend on what happens. I think we've got our charges right now generally absent absent federal authorities. Sometimes federal authorities can come in and trump things, and at this point in time we're not sure what's going to happen. But if we have priority, we've got him here, we've got him in custody, our case will take precedence, and then we'll obviously work with the other states if charges come. It could depend on what charges, what they want to do, but that's something we work through. But generally, we've got them. We'll take precedent at this point in time.
They work one case at a time, one jurisdiction at a time, so they don't get combined. If that's what your question is,
yeah. It's going to be like, he'll have a trial here, and then he'll go to Florida.
Yep, they'll all be coordinated. That's generally how it works.
Yep.
With the new victims that have come forward, has the age range changed? And initially there were 3 different locations here in Kent County. Has that been expanded?
Yeah, actually it is different. They're different. There'll be different jurisdictions. Actually, the new charges will be primarily in 61st District Court, while the other charges are in 63rd. So these will be in 61st District Court. So there are different. I don't have the exact how many different locations, but there are different locations separate from what we already charged. But the age range is pretty much the same. Young to teenager, right in that range.
So our pattern here in Kent County, and I can't speak to another jurisdiction's case, our pattern is fairly consistent with the ages of victims, establishing a relationship in one location and then pursuing CSCs in locations related to those victims.
Okay, so that includes, there was one business initially, right?
Right.
'The former gymnastics location, and then 2 private residence.
Yeah, so
that has.
we do not know of another business location at this point. So it is all around relationships established there, but then events that happen related to the victim. Yeah.
After charges were first announced like a month ago, was it relatively quickly when the other victims came forward? Like after the first 5 victims came forward, was it relatively quick after the fact?
Yeah, obviously within a month, so
Yeah.
it wasn't, it
Yeah.
didn't take a whole lot of time, because there's still investigations, so it wasn't like this, we just got these yesterday. We've been working on these for the last few weeks, so things moved forward relatively quickly. Once the word got out, we started getting more tips and more information.
Okay, and there's a possibility that we could be back here
Right.
in another month?
At some point in time, we may, I don't know, unless something, or, we may send out some notices, but I think we got the word out, and we'll get it out again, and I don't know if we'll have a full press conference next time, but.
Right. And obviously our discussion about when we have a press conference and when we don't have a press conference, one of the reasons we always want to is when we need information to get to the community so that they may be aware of these charges as it may impact them. Like, there might be more victims out there. If we just have updates to a case, we'll generally do a press release for that, and so you would look for that. But we're counting on you to relay that this happened, this offender was working in our area, and we really want to make sure that people who have been impacted by this offender understand that he's being held responsible, we could use their help, but more importantly, if you were also a victim of this offender, there's resources for you, and we want you to come forward for that reason.
Anything else? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.